What's going on, dear viewers? This is your gracious host, Kaine Walker, and before we get into the video, I want to let you know that over 75% of you are returning viewers who are not subscribed. If you find these videos helpful, click the button so you can continue to learn from them as much as I enjoy teaching in them. Today's topic is going to be about the importance of canon and continuity. Don't mind the slightly misleading thumbnail, because at first it was just going to be about continuity, but then influenced by some recent events, I figured I'd go over canon because it is distinct. Canon is just a more specified version of what continuity is, in that continuity is just the unbroken series of events that occur within an entertainment medium, or in layman's terms, the history of it. But canon signifies the events that actually matter and that actually count toward the timeline. Because if you've ever been a fan of anything, you know that not everything that occurs within continuity is considered canon, or not everything that occurs involving a certain property or IP is canon. What I'm going to go over in this video is the definition of each as well as their importance, because your audience cannot become attached or immersed in whatever you're creating if you disregard canon and continuity, because then nothing matters and there's no stakes. Are there exceptions to this? Maybe, but in most cases, when we're talking about genres that people find interesting, especially when it comes to general nerd culture like fantasy, science fiction, things like that, you're going to want to be very careful with your canon and continuity and what you decide to establish as part of the legitimate history of whatever you're making, because it's very important that your audience doesn't feel betrayed. And this is going to be somewhat of a double feature, because I'm going to grab two separate articles that explain both of these things individually. And without further ado, now is the part where I go to the first article that will help me further highlight my thoughts. I'll see you there. The first article we're going to read is going to be coming from the expandeduniverse.com with the importance of continuity. What is continuity? Let's look at the definition. An unbroken and consistent existence or operation of something over a period of time. That's nice. So what does it mean? Continuity in storytelling shows a higher effort and concentration of keeping everything consistent with what has come before. It saves the reader from the confusion and aggravation of facts being changed or becoming inconsistent with one another. We live with consistency in our everyday lives as well. When I step outside, I know gravity will keep me on the ground. The sun will always rise in the east and set in the west. That's plain science. It's consistent. Knowing 1 + 1 will always equal 2 is also consistent, because that's math. Math and science are a big part of our lives. We also have consistency in sports. If a baseball player hits the ball, we know he's running to first base and not to third. If a batter gets his third strike, he is out. Those are the rules, and they're consistent wherever the sport is played. But say we were playing baseball and I decided to change the rules. Instead of running to first base, you must run to the pitcher's mound, back to home plate, and then advance to first. Would you accept my new rule and play it that way, or would you be upset and refuse to change? Why can't we just change the rule? Can't you accept it? Forget about how the game's been played for 100 years. It's my way of playing the game, and I can change the rules however I want. And if you don't love new rule, then you're not a true fan of this sport. Does that analogy seem fair to you? Maybe not. But if Major League Baseball decided to accept such a scenario officially, you'd have to deal with it while other folks mocked and ridiculed the original rules that were played by. Some won't even know how it was played in the first place and tell you that running to first was always a rule to begin with. But let's move to the subject of continuity in storytelling. It's the most popular form of art in our society today. We all tell stories, whether fictional or true, and everyone loves a good one. But we love consistency in them as well. A good joke is delivered the same way, so its effect is just as funny when you heard it the first time. If you don't deliver the setup or punchline, the joke fails or misses its mark. The same can be said with a story. If it doesn't hold consistency, it risks losing its audience and allure. Yet consistency in storytelling is a dying trait, and in comics and Hollywood it holds very little value at all anymore. Hollywood is all about the reboot. Stories being retold again and again with less behind it each time. There have been 2 Spider-Mans on the silver screen in less than a decade, and soon we'll have a third. Instead of giving us new ideas or building on the works of their predecessors, Hollywood chooses to hit the restart button in an attempt to create the same worn-out product, leaving a tremendous gap in the development of original stories and ideas. The myth that consistency hinders creativity is not usually the case. Continuity inspires and challenges you to build upon what came before and make it better. One of the keys to successful sequels is that they stand on the facts established in the previous films and therefore can take the story to other levels it's an amazing accomplishment that the audience appreciates. Take Aliens, for instance. How good would the movie be if James Cameron had decided to reboot the story and tell it all over again? He'd have to reintroduce characters and elements to the audience they've already seen before, moving his vision forward. However, the time it takes setting everything up is half the movie. Reboots contain an unnecessary redundancy that the audience could do without. The thing many disliked about Amazing Spider-Man was that they had to sit through yet another origin story a few years after Sam Raimi had already done one. In my opinion, hitting the reboot button instead of continuing the story is lazy and uncreative. If there's no more story to tell, then end it and create something better. Reboots only make movies look like expensive fan films instead of something truly inspired. Consistency is also a reward to the fans who've loyally followed the story and appreciate ties to the previous films. It's a way of thanks for their long-standing support. A prime example is the Tremors franchise. A series which started in 1990 has seen 3 sequels and a short-lived TV series. Each sequel stays in perfect continuity with later installments and even brings actors back to portray their original characters when necessary. The franchise pays close attention to detail because they know it's what the fans want. They recently announced the new movie coming this October. Tremors 5 Bloodlines will continue the story of our hero Burt Gummer as he sets out to save the populace from graboids. To see they're keeping 5 in the title instead of making a tagline is an indication that the creators are proud to stand alongside previous works as the 5th installment of this series. But let's move over to the Star Wars Expanded Universe for a bit. This is a series that spanned over 35 years of one continuous continuity. Recently, since the purchase of the Disney Corporation, it was decided that everything but the films and recent Clone Wars animated series should be discarded in favor of a reboot. Those who defend the original continuity are sometimes even mocked by fans of the films on online forums and message boards with comments such as, "Get over it and stop whining," revealing the ignorance of those who missed the point. The expanded universe gave fans one cohesive story through the eyes of hundreds of authors who carefully constructed an arc over the many years of its existence. Others have stated, "I love the EU too, but I got over it, why can't you?" For many, the answer is clear. They care about it more. Some will accuse such adherence as being elitist. However, if one claims to care about something but isn't upset it's gone, then that person may need to reevaluate how much she loved it in the first place. If one's friend passed away and I said to you, "I'm sorry about your loss," but I came back weeks later and say, "Your friend's gone, I miss her too, but you don't see me whining about it, do you? Now get over it," how insensitive would that be? I don't share the same connection you did with your friend. The arrogance of assuming I'm wiser than you is foolish. The reason some Star Wars fans can't understand why the expanded universe meant so much is because they didn't share the same connections that many did to the story. Generally speaking, people don't like reboots. Reboots generally don't do well, and comics have lost an enormous amount of readers over the years because of it. But why is it so casually accepted today? That's why I refer to reboots as lazy. The Star Wars expanded universe raised the bar for storytelling as time went on, becoming a more creative and encompassing force the longer it went on. Unfortunately, continuity is not in keeping with the corporate bottom line, and the fans are left to suffer because of it. The upcoming Star Wars novel Aftermath will continue the process, following the new line of comics by Marvel, of bulldozing decades of historic content that's been around, and while some cheer its demise, others will see it as reminiscent of the tragic ending of Revenge of the Sith, which depicted the destruction of the Grand Republic that had stood for over 1,000 generations. Long live the expanded universe, an extraordinary saga that proved how creativity and continuity go hand in hand. This next one is going to come from needlesslynerdy.com with canonicity and storytelling. Canon versus headcanon. Canonicity is a critical aspect of storytelling that is widely used in cinema and literature. The term canon refers to the established and recognized body of work that is considered authoritative and official within a particular franchise or series. It is essential to determine what makes something canon and what does not, and who determines its canonicity. This article will delve into the concept of canonicity in terms of continuity, storytelling, and the differences between an opinion, headcanon, and actual canon. Canon is defined as the recognized and accepted body of work within a particular series or franchise that is considered to be the official and authoritative narrative. This is often determined by the creators of the franchise, who have the ultimate say in what is considered canon and what is not. For example, in the Star Wars franchise, the films, TV show, novels, and comic books that are considered part of the official narrative are considered canon, while any other stories that contradict or do not fit within this new established narrative, such as the now decanonized expanded universe, are not considered canon. The criteria for canonicity can vary depending on the franchise and the medium. canon. In some cases, only works created by the original author or creator of the series are considered canon, while in others, adaptations or spin-offs created by other writers or studios can also be considered canon. In most cases, the creators of the franchise determine what is considered canon, and this can change over time as the franchise evolves. The concept of death of the author refers to the idea that once a work is published, the author's intentions and interpretations become irrelevant, and the meaning of the work is solely determined by the reader's interpretation. While this concept has its merits in certain contexts, it does not necessarily apply to established finished projects that remain canon. In these cases, the creators of the project have the ultimate authority to determine what events are considered canon, and their intentions and interpretations should be taken into account. While readers and fans may have their own interpretations of the work, these interpretations do not negate or change the established canon. Ultimately, canonicity is determined by the creators of the work and should be respected as such. There are various factors that can affect whether something is considered canon or not. One significant factor in continuity. Continuity refers to the consistency of the narrative within a particular franchise or series. In other words, whether the events, characters, and storylines in one work fit within the established narrative of the franchise. Another factor that can affect canonicity is the level of involvement of the original creators in a particular work. If the creators of the franchise have little or no involvement in a particular work, it is less likely to be considered canon unless referring to the new continuity established based off of the original works, in which case an entirely new canon is established. Marvel's comics and cinematic universe differ greatly between each other as they are separate continuities. In certain franchises, such as Harry Potter and Marvel, there can be multiple different canons that exist simultaneously. For example, in the Harry Potter franchise, the books are considered the original canon, while the films are considered a different continuity. While the films generally follow the same story as the books, there are several differences in the plot, characters, and overall tone of the two versions. As a result, some events that are considered canon in the books may not be considered canon in the films, and vice versa. Similarly, in the Marvel franchise, the comics and Marvel Cinematic Universe (MCU) are considered separate canons. While both versions of the story feature many of the same characters and storylines, they also have significant differences. For example, certain characters that appear in the comics may not appear in the MCU, and events that occur in one canon may not occur in the other. Opinions and headcanons are distinct from actual canon. Opinions refer to personal views or beliefs about a particular work, while headcanons refer to individual interpretations of certain aspects of a work that are not explicitly stated in the text or completely contradicting fan-related content. Both of these are subjective and do not affect the canonicity of a particular work. For example, a viewer may have a negative opinion of a particular film in a franchise, but this does not make it any less canon. Similarly, a fan may have a headcanon about the backstory of a particular character, but this does not necessarily mean that it is part of the official canon. It is crucial to note that fans cannot determine what is canon and what is not. Only the creators of the franchise have the authority to decide what is considered canon. Fans may choose to ignore certain aspects of the established narrative or create their own interpretations of certain elements. This does not change the official canon. It is important to distinguish between personal preferences and actual canonicity, as they are not interchangeable. In conclusion, canonicity is a crucial aspect of storytelling that is used in both cinema and literature. Canon refers to the established and recognized body of work within a particular franchise or series that is considered official and authoritative. The criteria for canonicity can vary depending on the franchise and medium, but continuity and involvement of the original creators are significant factors. Opinions and headcanons are distinct from actual canon and do not affect canonicity. Lucasfilm established an entirely new canon for Star Wars in 2012, rebranding most past works as legends. One important aspect of canonicity is its impact on the overall narrative of a particular franchise. Canon works are considered part of the official story and can influence future works in the series. For example, if a particular character dies in a canon work, it is unlikely that they will be brought back to life in a future work, as this would contradict the established narrative. As a result, canonicity plays a significant role in shaping the overall story and characters within a franchise. It is also important to note that canonicity can change over time. As a franchise evolves and new works are created, the definition of canon may shift. For example, in the Star Wars franchise, certain novels and comic books that were originally considered part of the official canon were later retconned to allow for new stories to be told within the franchise. As a result, it is essential for fans to stay up to date with the latest developments in their favorite franchises to understand what is considered canon at any given time. time. Only the creators of the franchise have the authority to determine what is considered canon, and it is essential for fans to understand the distinction between personal opinions and actual canon. While fans may have their own interpretations of a particular work, these do not necessarily reflect the official narrative of the franchise. It is crucial to respect the authority of the creators of the franchise and their decisions regarding what is considered canon, but fans would do well to remember that this does not invalidate any opinions, interpretations, or headcanons that they may have. And those are the articles. Just a couple of disagreements with that last article involving canonicity. While yes, the creators do have the final say as far as what is created, creators do not have the final say in what is considered canon. Fans do. The disregard for fan influence is exactly why we are in the space we're in when it comes to our current entertainment landscape. Leaning too far into the authoritative position as a creator that expects the audience to pay for their work will land you in the exact same position as Disney, Marvel, and DC. Failure to hold your fans' opinions, suggestions, and criticisms in high regard is detrimental to your business and the quality of your creative work. Now, does that mean you should be a slave to your audience? Absolutely not. However, does that mean you should betray your audience? Doubly so. But as demonstrated, canon and continuity are important. The reason for this is the same as any culture is formed. And as a creator, there will be people who take interest in your work and support it for years, so long as you continue to give them what got them to stay in the first place. And I'm gonna say something, and I know it might get a couple people mad, but hear me out. Any groups that demand for the change of whatever you've created when you have an established core fan base should be ignored. Ignore those people. If the core fan base says they like something and some outsiders or some newbies come in and tell you to change it, do not write for these people. They're not your target audience because they're either too ignorant or never had enough interest in the first place to have the right to have an influence over the product. They don't have a love for it and they haven't been supporting it. But that's just my opinion. Either way, that's all I have to say on this topic. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, join our Writing Club Discord server, and follow us on Twitter to keep your finger on the pulse of Cosmogoth. This is your gracious host, Kaine Walker, signing off, and I will see you again next time. Peace.